And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hello, everyone out there in Tampa Bay and beyond. This is James Knowles coming at you for the RBLR Sports Podcast. I am here tonight covering the Rowdies, as per usual. And to help me do that, I do have my usual co-host, Carlos. How are you doing tonight, sir?
James, I'm doing fantastic. We're recording a day earlier than normal here on this beautiful Monday night in the Tampa Bay area. It's been a good day. I just watched the Rays on Bally Sports, and they came out with a nice win up there in Boston. I'm trying out this new guacamole I've never had from Publix. Yucatan guacamole, authentic recipe mild, it says. It's pretty good. Can't really go wrong. It tastes all right. It's a nice day. What else is going on? Can't complain. Nice day out. Not too many clouds in the sky, and I've just been enjoying a nice Monday. So, James, how about yourself? What's going on over there?
Yeah, not too different. Although I have not had guacamole today, so my treat,
that.
I guess, it was some pizza. So
That's
still pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, either way, I think you and I are both feeling pretty good, Carlos, because there was a weird result this weekend, but it turned out to be a pretty good one in the end. For us who are Rowdies fans. And, like I said, pretty weird, but it didn't really hurt us. And that's kind of where I'm coming from here. So let's get into that now. On Saturday, the Rowdies drew 1-1 against the visiting Sacramento Republic. Sacramento Republic, who were and might still be number one overall. I will double check that, but they certainly were coming into the season or this game number one overall in the standings. And we held them to a 1-1 result despite 2 red cards to our players. So I guess I'm just fine with that because the red cards were weird, and we're going to get into all of that later because there's too much to talk about when it comes to those specifically. Those could be their own little podcast, but we'll spare everybody listening. In the RBLR Cup standings, now I am on 11 points along with the guest spot. And Carlos, you are on 8, and producer Eureka is on 5. So I'm coming for you, all of our guests. We do have another one this week. So keep an eye out. If you would like to take part in that, please, let us know. We would be happy, obviously, to have more people take part in, everything we do, honestly. Moving to the next thing, we do have another game to preview this weekend that will be again at home, this time versus New Mexico United. They are coming to town from the West, and hopefully we will give them a little beat down to get us back on track on our winning streaks. And so before we get into that, please like and subscribe to our podcast on YouTube and all major podcast platforms, as well as social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you are at RBLR Sports. Now, Carlos, if you could, please take us into the quick recap, and then we'll do our questions.
Yep. Like you said, James, this past Saturday night, your Tampa Bay Rowdies played the top team in the league at that time, Sacramento Republic. We were coming in very hot. We lined up with Sparrow in goal as per usual. Antley, Kleeman, Lasso, and Guillen made up the back four. Jordan Doherty and a new old face, Lawrence Wyke, slotted into the midfield after coming in on loan from Nashville. Made up that midfield 2 right in front of the back line. Sebastian Dalgaard, Charlie Dennis, and Spalding made up the mid 3 in front of them. And J.J. Williams, the lone striker up top, trying to continue his hot streak of scoring and good performances on this night. With Wyke coming back on loan, our injury hit midfield did get a boost. Again, lots of injuries there in the midfield. Let me check my notes. We had Harris, Hilton, Ekra, and Ervo were all listed on the injury report, guys that were not on the bench or anything. Definitely needed somebody like Wyke to come in and reinforce that part of our squad. The team created a ton of chances early on in the first half and eventually made it 1-0 on a really, really nice play, a nice goal. It was a J.J. Williams goal, as expected, but this time not from Spalding. The assist did not come from Spalding. This time it was from the other side of the field. I think Dalgaard officially got the assist, and it was 1-0 Rowdies. But just before halftime, as the rain started to come down, out of nowhere, by the way, there was no rain listed on the radar. Nothing was showing up leading up to the game. All of a sudden, there was exactly. As the downpour started, Sacramento came out of nowhere, really, and finished a really nice goal off a beautiful pass from Cicerone, honestly. And I believe it was Ross. Let me confirm that got on the score sheet with a nice finish right by Sparrow. Yeah, that would be the last goal of the game. The game finished 1-1, but there would not be a lack, let's say, of eventful moments in the second half either, as there would be 2 red cards for your Tampa Bay Rowdies, James, before the game ended. Both second yellows. One was on J.J. Williams on what would have been the game-winning goal before it was disallowed for a J.J. Williams foul, and a second red card, which, to be honest, I'm still not totally sure what happened with Connor Antley. He must have said something, and that's really all we can deduce from the video and from being there to get a second yellow from the ref. And yeah, the Rowdies ended up with 9 men and had to hold strong for those last 5 or so minutes with 9 players. And to their credit, they did well. They hung in there and came out with a point in what could have been a really, really dire situation. So that was the end of the game, 1-1. Rowdies and Sacramento tied on a very eventful night. Rowdies came away with a point, let's say, against the best team in the league. So a good performance overall, James. There's a lot to break down here. Really, there was a lot going on. So let's just start with the first half. Kind of the most eventful half in terms of offensive production, I think, for the Rowdies. What did you see different? Let's just start with the first half. What happened in the first half? What did we do to create those offensive opportunities that eventually led to our first goal?
Yeah, I actually found going through it. I was not able to watch, unfortunately, the night of, so I watched it the next day, and I saw that it seemed to me, at least, Sacramento were lining up pretty much the way that the Rowdies kind of do. At least at the back, they had their fullbacks, and the fullbacks were, or their wingbacks, I should say, the wingbacks were heavily involved as much as they could be. Although it did seem to me as though the Rowdies were really leading the possession. In fact, by halftime, the possession was 60% to 40% in our favor. So obviously there was a good split there. We also had 8-3 shots. Only 2 of our 8 got on target. So you have to take that into consideration. But, fair enough. At least we're getting the shots in as we go. Yes, they were lining up pretty much like we were. And it seemed, relatively smooth in terms of the players that we had. I think that obviously Lawrence Wyke was stepping in for Jan Ekra because Jan Ekra was out injured. We had Sebastian Dalgaard stepping in for Dayon Harris because Dayon Harris was out injured. So all of these things you would think would mount, and these are going to cause problems for us, but it actually didn't really seem to, as far as I saw it. Connor Antley was still able to do exactly what I have seen him do all of the previous games. He was doing his little in and out, switching with the winger. In this case, that was Sebastian Dalgaard. And Sebastian Dalgaard, as we've seen, he is perfectly capable of playing as a fullback or a wingback. We've seen that before. So he was able to step back when needed. But mostly it was Connor Antley stepping into what you would call the half space in terms about soccer that even I don't really get. But the half space is supposed to be kind of the spots that are right in front of the 18 box, but aren't, directly in front of the goal. So it's where the goal ends on the sides, and then the 18-yard box ends on the front. So it's right there. It's kind of like the most advantageous spots because you don't have all those defenders that are bunched up in front of the goal, but you kind of have a little space in between yourself and getting bunched up out on the wing. So Connor Antley really loves to live in that recently, and I saw him doing it again. Jordan Doherty had a really good game. I thought that he was very good in terms of his recycling of the possession, as we've seen him come to do recently, but it was mostly down to, it was mostly still down to the wingers to try and create stuff, or the fullbacks to try and create stuff, and they did. We got a fair few shots off of those crosses, but it was also interesting because it seemed to me when we had the ball at the back that Sacramento wasn't really pressing a lot. I didn't see them, trying to attack us when we had the ball at, our back line. And I'm perfectly happy to accept that in the moment because then we don't have to worry about it. I don't know why Sacramento made that decision, but considering the injuries that we were faced with, I assumed that they might. Better for us in the end. And it was good to see the players step in who had not been regular starters and kind of just, it was still pretty seamless. Lawrence Wyke hasn't even been with the team since November, October, whatever it is now.
Yeah.
But obviously, he's been with the team long enough. He knows Neil Collins long enough that Neil Collins can give him his assignment sheet, so to speak. And he checked all the boxes that he needed to. Sebastian Dalgaard did the same thing, but he's obviously been here all along this year. So I'm glad that it worked out the way that it did. And in the 33rd minute, it was actually really interesting. It was not a goal that I've seen the Rowdies score a ton recently. Carlos, you tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I don't remember the last time that I saw a goal develop because of a goalkeeper clearance that went straight into like the wing area.
Yeah.
And Sebastian Dalgaard's first touch,
Beautiful.
Yeah. Perfect weight on the touch to get it past the defender that was about to step in and mark him, and also to lead himself into the space behind that defender.
He had a couple of those.
Yeah, he did. But this one was obviously the one that paid off the most for us. It was absolutely beautiful. And man, these are the moments that I wish that we had like the hockey assist, because then Connor Sparrow would be on the score sheet, but we can't give it to him, unfortunately. He did very nice work, and Sebastian Dalgaard did too. Like I said, he played himself into space and he cut it back across the front of the face of goal. Danny Vitiello of Sacramento was not there, and JJ Williams kind of barreled his way through. That's all you need. He put it in, and it was good to see that JJ Williams was able to not only get on the score sheet but keep up a very good recent record. I think that he's up to 6 goals this year. And when you consider where the Rowdies were the first couple of games of the season, that's just amazing. We're up to 13 games so far this year. And in those 13, let's say, you cut out 3 or 4 based on the first month or 2 of the year, because nobody was scoring then pretty much.
Right.
And if you do that, then you get to, let's say, let's give him 10 goals or 10 games that the Rowdies have actually been like, possible competitors in, and he scored in 6 of them. That's a very good return rate, if you ask me, which is, we're giving him I guess a little bit of a curve there, but I'm grading, so I'm allowed to do that.
Exactly. Now you touched on a lot of what I wanted to mention in terms of that first half. I'll reiterate what you said about the guys that slotted in that obviously weren't regular starters. Obviously Wyke being one of them, because he's not even a Rowdy until he came back in on loan.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was really, really nice to see him slot in. That was one of like my main notes here I listed was he slotted in as if he never left practically. Dalgaard had a fantastic game. Like you mentioned, that touch was beautiful. And he had, again, multiple of those moments on this evening where just a great first touch to get by his defender. Whoever the Sacramento left back is, I'm having trouble remembering who it is right now, was having an absolute nightmare type of night against Dalgaard.
The left back or the left center back, because they had the wing back Aldair Sanchez, and then I think it was Shane Wheat who started as the left defender, and then he actually was subbed out.
Yeah, you're right. I'm whoever was on the left side against Dalgaard, I'm not remembering.
I think it was Wheat, because he actually just got subbed out. So you are recognizing something that even Sacramento was like, we got to get him off.
Yeah, it was just problems for that whole side of Sacramento. Dalgaard was having a fantastic game, and I was honestly pretty surprised. I know he has a lot of dribbling ability in him, but I guess it's been a little while since I've seen him, kind of take a ball from the midfield and create something like that. He had a great game, and I want to give him a shout out for that. And that whole play was just beautiful to see. So the guys that slotted played fantastic. I loved the continuation of like this press that we've been utilizing recently. There was several moments early on in the game where JJ Williams, who again, like I mentioned this a few times already throughout the season, but for how big he is and kind of like the stocky build he has, he can move really, really well.
Yeah.
And on the press, he has been an absolute asset. And when he gets up, he made Vitiello make a few mistakes from the back that have quickly turned into turnovers and led to good looks for the Rowdies. Early on, literally I think 40 seconds in or so, I don't know if you recall that chance within the first minute from Charlie Dennis, who ripped a shot. That came from one of those turnovers. I think it was Dalgaard forced a bad pass from out of the back again from whoever was on that left side for Sacramento.
Yeah, I had that in my notes as well.
Yeah, it was cut out by Wyke. Wyke finds Dennis, and Dennis let a really nice shot fly. So we were looking dangerous from the get-go, and that was kind of one of those moments where I was like, okay, like we settled in really, really quickly, and we had a game plan from the start. So I was really confident about this game. I felt like we were going to get a win, to be honest, just based on how we were performing. I thought we could have had, easily at least 2 or 3 goals in that first half. There were several really, really good looks. Even Wyke, who, again, I mentioned him already, Wyke had a couple chances that could have, maybe even should have ended up in the back of the net, where he was shrieking by himself. I mean, it was the 29th minute, where JJ Williams fantastically chested a ball down to a Wyke who was streaking in from our own half of the field. And Wyke takes it by himself, runs 3/4 of the field, and maybe waited just a tad too long. He had Charlie Dennis wide open kind of in the penalty spot, missed him, and instead looked for Spalding on the back post. And it was that right back. His name is, what's his name? Gurr. His last name is Gurr, who had a crazy night. I really dislike this guy.
Very weird up and down night.
Yeah, he got on my nerves so quickly that night. But he had a pretty decent night and saved a goal in this case. I don't know if you recall that. It was the 29th minute. Spalding had a wide open net, but Gurr slid in there and just blocked the ball with his body. Like I think the ball bounced off his stomach. He was just on the floor and saved what would have been a sure goal.
Yeah.
Wyke doing a really good job creating that. And even like, again, this is a thing that I don't really recall from Wyke in the past. He seemed more like an attacking midfield kind of guy on this night. Like he was getting up, creating a lot of chances. Had a couple shots, like again, could have ended up in the back of the net, but skied them a couple times. So again, I was really, really happy with our offensive production. Could have knocked in a couple more goals than we did. I think, again, we could have put the game away pretty early on, but I mean, that's the game. Sacramento has a fantastic back line and a very good goalie, and they did just enough, I think, to hold on when things looked pretty grim for them for a good 20 minutes or so. So I think that's a testament to Sacramento's quality. Again, we could have maybe done a bit better, but again, we're playing the best team in the league at the moment. Sacramento had just enough to hold on and keep it a 1-0 game, just long enough for them to come back and score in a counterattack in what was their first shot on goal of the night, by the way. That Cicerone counterattack, slipped that ball through to Ross. Maybe Guillen fell asleep for a half second. It seemed like he kind of lost his guy.
Yeah, it did.
I don't really know what happened there. Maybe for a second, it looked like he was still looking around for Ross, and by the time he saw him, Ross was long gone. So it happens. It is what it is. Cicerone is a fantastic player, kind of MVP type season already for him. He's up there as one of the best players in the league right now. It was a great pass from him. So again, expected that they would get on the score sheet at some point. Unfortunate that we couldn't have that lead going into halftime because it would have been a very different game. Am I missing anything from the first half? That goal was beautiful. 31st minute. Dalgaard had a good look in the 31st minute. Shot went low into the corner. Pretty easy save though. What else? Yeah, more notes on Antley. Just had a fantastic game. The ref was kind of making himself a character already in the first half. I have a few questionable calls already. Spalding, I don't know if you recall that. It was pretty early on, like 16th minute or so, 15th minute. Spalding got absolutely trucked on the touchline.
Like thrown into the boards.
Yeah. Literally, I mean, it was, I guess it was shoulder to shoulder, I guess, quote unquote. But I mean, again, Gurr, the character from Sacramento for this game, totally just goes out of the way to destroy Spalding when the ball was kind of already rolling out of play. 100% should have been a foul. And again, there was a few of those no calls that I think were clear as day. Obviously, I'm a Rowdies fan. I have my Rowdies shirt on right now. Like we're doing a podcast about the Rowdies. But that could not be clear. There's a few calls like that were just insane no calls. And Spalding seemed to be in the middle of almost all of the weird no calls. So that was kind of strange. Whatever. That's how I saw the first half, James. I was generally really happy with how it went, with the notable exception of the Sacramento equalizer. We had a really, really good first half. And I even tweeted out at halftime, I was like, if we keep this up, we have several more goals coming. We couldn't have predicted the red cards and the rain. I'm sure it played somewhat of a factor in kind of the sloppiness of that second half. But generally, very happy with how it went. There's a reason John Morrissey from USL Tactics put us at number 1 in the USL Power Rankings right now, his USL Power Rankings, because I think we entirely outplayed the best team in the league. It should have come out with 3 points, and I guess that makes us the best team in the league, but I guess we have to beat them, so whatever. Who cares? Hopefully we see them again. Hopefully it's in the USL Championship final. But until then, thank you, Sacramento, for a good first half. What else? Did I miss anything?
I really, I just wanted to point out, based on what you said, I thought the referee in the first half was actually doing relatively well. I think that you're right. He was like, kind of getting himself involved in weird ways. But overall, if I didn't know how the game ended, because I looked at the score, obviously, before I went and watched it, if I didn't know how the game ended and where it was, I would have been like, oh, this is a pretty normal refereeing exhibition, or, whatever the term is for a referee's performance. But yeah, I didn't think that it was that weird until much later. And then, so if we just get into that, Sacramento got their goal pretty much right before halftime. That was very unfortunate, as you said. Really weird, and kind of seemed like Aaron Guillen did seem to switch off. I don't know if he was the only one, but it did seem like he did on that. So, unfortunate there. But we're going into halftime and the second half level at 1. Fair enough. Okay, so in the second half, I really didn't see that there were a ton more chances, like very good chances especially. I think that the Rowdies really kind of... This is a very bad way to put it. I don't think that it's the case that they took their foot off the gas or anything like that. I just think that it kind of, shook out that in the end, it really wasn't all that. It wasn't very spectacular in terms of the attacking sense. So I said before that we had 8 shots going into halftime. We ended up with 11 overall. I mean, that's not very, and that shows that it's relatively close from one to the next. But so if we go through, I think this is where we're going to have to take the second half coverage. As much as I would love to talk about, why it seemed like it kind of slowed down a bit. It was weird. In the 55th minute, JJ got a yellow card because, so this is what I saw. Tell me if this is different for you. JJ Williams tackles a guy. Now, I thought it was a strong challenge, but I thought it was possibly okay. I didn't think that it was a yellow card. I think that what he stood up and he made a muscle man, someone who's like flexing. He did that and it was like he was getting in the player's face. I don't know what was going on back and forth between him and the player that he had, on his back all game. Obviously, there's going to be some chirp and there's going to be some stuff like that. We get it. But so he got up and it seemed like he was fired up that he had just won this challenge, regardless of whether or not he got a foul. So he gets up and he starts doing that. He starts doing the wrestling pose, I guess. And then he got a yellow card. I don't know if that was because of the foul. Now, Carlos, maybe you can fill me in a little bit. I didn't see the referee going for his pocket after he blew the whistle. I saw it maybe a second or two afterwards when JJ was doing this. And if you're giving him a yellow card for that, that doesn't make any sense at all to me. But what did you see on that? It's honestly ridiculous that we're even trying to analyze one yellow card, right?
Yeah, I'm going back to fact check myself before I say anything because I don't recall. I want to say on first trying. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to remember what happened, and I'm pulling up the replay of that play right now. I think you're right. I thought he got the yellow card for the foul, but immediately after the foul was called, he started doing this thing with the muscles and the it's one of the things you only see on the basketball court type thing. I've only ever seen people do that, like pose on the basketball court when they get the and one or whatever. I've never seen that on a soccer field. And I think you're totally right. He started doing that immediately after the foul. And I think that's why he got the yellow card, which is kind of hilarious. Like if that's like an individual moment, I don't think we would be talking. Obviously, we wouldn't be talking about this if he didn't get that second yellow later on.
Right.
This would have just been kind of like a goofy moment during the game. I don't think that was a foul, by the way. It seemed like
Right.
a
Yeah,
pretty clean.
that's what I felt. Like it
Yeah,
was a really odd call in the end.
yeah. It was a super. I think it was a bad call, but again, that was kind of the theme of the game. Um, it was a pretty clean 50-50, and he was just a bigger guy, and I think he kind of
Cause he is.
yeah, and I think he took that I don't know, and kind of ran with it and kind of just tried to flex on whoever he was matching up against. Um, yeah, and I think that's why he got the yellow card. So I think you're right in saying that, and I think it is pretty ridiculous. Um, but again, it's so stupid that we're even mentioning this because we wouldn't if he didn't get the second yellow later on. It
Yeah.
very much the second. I hate to talk about um, the ref a lot in this episode, but you can't really talk about the second half without mentioning the ref. To be honest, um, immediately, I guess not immediately, but this is 10 minutes into the second, 9 minutes into the second half, when he already started kind of seriously making himself the center of the game. 6 minutes later, Forrest also got a yellow card. 5 minutes after that, Aaron Guillen got a yellow card. So there was 3 yellow cards in the span of 10 minutes on multiple different
Yeah.
instances. And but Kleeman got one 6 minutes after Guillen. So there was 4 yellow cards for the Rowdies on 4 separate instances within 15 minutes. And then they just started to rack up, and eventually you got the JJ Williams red card later on with that pretty silly foul, which I think that one was a foul. I think that one was a yellow card, to be honest.
I think here's what I will say though. I think that's a foul, but like in my opinion, he shouldn't have been on a yellow card to begin with.
Yeah.
In my opinion, as well on the second one, I don't know. I think it's just it's just a foul.
Yeah. I think those are.
I don't know if I'm there with it being a yellow because it just looked to me like it was kind of clumsy.
Yeah, those are one of the ones
can
where
be yellow, by the way, but still.
Yeah, those are one of the moments where I think every ref has to be. Those are one of the fouls where I it's like you have to take the context of the game into account. I think in that case, I think that's a pretty clear yellow card, especially if he doesn't have a yellow card already. But I think a lot of referees would take into account the fact that he has a yellow card already, and that getting a second yellow card for that would be a little bit extreme. And then there's some referees like Oliva, I guess, on this night who don't really care and will just give him a second yellow and there's a red card. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's always a discussion I hear when talking about calls. I feel like if a yellow is worth more when it's a second yellow, and is there a higher bar for a yellow card in that case? I think there usually is, but I guess for Oliva, the referee on the night, there wasn't, and it's just a really silly foul to get a red card on, or I guess they get a second yellow on. So it was pretty frustrating to see, especially on a goal or on a play that would have been a goal otherwise. I guess I don't really know. It was pretty silly. The whole thing was really silly. JJ Williams, both his fouls, I guess, were pretty silly, or both his yellow cards were silly. I guess that second yellow card could be up for debate. I'm not really sold on either one. I could see it being a yellow card, but again, in the context of him already having yellow, is there a higher bar? Maybe. But who knows? And this night, I think with the calls Oliva had made already, he was already kind of putting himself under the microscope, and every call became just, I guess, more and more making him the center of attention, if that makes any sense. So every call after, the second yellow and the JJ Williams and the clear missed calls just seemed like worse and worse calls, if that makes any sense. So it's hard for me to say like objectively, because I'm a Rowdies fan and I wanted that to be a goal so bad. So in the moment I was like, this is BS. This sucks. Looking back, I could see it being a second yellow. But again, Oliva had a nightmare of a game, so I'm not really giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, and just to say, my notes include, the ref getting a little card happy this half. There was the substitution, the lone substitution the Rowdies made. Sebastian Dalgaard came off for Cal Jennings. And there was also a chance in the 60th where the Rowdies, 2 players missed their shot, like within the box, very close. There was a chance that the Rowdies could have put this away, but obviously that didn't come about. So the next thing, like you said, turns into the whole narrative of the second half really becomes how the referee inserted himself into things. And yeah, so we talked about JJ Williams' call, and you and I can, go back and forth on that. Like I said, that could be a whole podcast in and of itself. I don't want to turn this into a relitigating podcast because if we do that, we've got too many games to go and cover. But the second red card that we saw this game, I don't understand at all. And I don't mean, the way that you and I were just like, I think this one's a yellow. I think that one's yellow. I don't think this one's yellow. Whatever. I don't get what happened. I don't know why this. If this is a card, Connor Aitley wasn't on a card before, but he got 2 yellow cards in 30 seconds.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, no, that's right. I that wasn't a fact I realized until when I went back and rewatched the game. I thought at some point he was already on a yellow card and he must have said something to the ref that was like pretty bad, I guess,
Right.
to get a second yellow card to get sent off. There again, in this case, I feel like there has to be a really high bar of like what is like so far beyond what you say to the ref that like it's a second yellow and you get sent off. But he didn't have the card at all. And in the play before, there wasn't really a foul there. He didn't even, if I'm remembering correctly, he didn't touch whoever the Sacramento guy was that was on the floor or anything. Like that wasn't a foul. It was a goal kick, I think. So he didn't even call a foul. And all of a sudden he gets 2 yellows and gets sent off. I was super confused then. I'm even more confused now knowing that he didn't have a yellow card going into that. During the game, watching that, I thought it was BS, but I already thought he had a yellow, and this was the second yellow for something he might have said. I'm very confused. This is something I would love to find out. Maybe we can ask him at some point this week. Maybe we see him on Saturday at Al Lang. I'm sure we will. He'll be around the stadium. Obviously not suited up for a game, but yeah, I mean, this is something I think I would love to get to the bottom of because it's pretty absurd. Like, I don't know what could have possibly happened to get 2 yellows in about 30 seconds.
I saw, I don't know. It looked like he, fouled somebody. Okay. And maybe he was standing over that person and talking to them. I don't think that in and of itself is a foul unless you like say something that's, I don't know, kind of offensive or whatever. Like, I'm not too sure. Anyway, so let's say that does happen and he gets a yellow card because he said your mom sucks or whatever,
Okay.
Then he turns around and he's like, oh yeah, referee, and your mom sucks too, and he gives him a second one. Like,
yeah,
what I don't know. Again, yeah, we're not going to get the whole story unless we can like talk to him about it and he's a little forthcoming, but that's how the game ended. And like I said, if that's how the game ended, then I said this earlier, I'm perfectly happy with a 1-1 draw under the circumstances, but it's really bizarre. It is really bizarre. And I kind of hope we don't see that referee for a long time.
Yeah. Mr. What's his first name? Like, whatever. Mr. Oliva, thank you for your services on this evening. But this is one of the things where, again, like you said, hopefully we don't see it for a really, really long time because that was just a disaster class from him. Yeah, Sacramento was, again, they weren't really having a fantastic second half or anything either. Let's go back briefly to talking about like the players and the tactics and how the game played out. I think we did a really good job of shutting them down offensively for a team that like offensively is as powerful as it is, and having players like Cicerone and this guy Herrera, who's been having a really good season. Herrera was a non-factor this game.
Yep.
Like, Lasso was doing such a good job of just bodying him and keeping him in front of him throughout the whole game. Herrera didn't do a single thing the whole game. Really, he had one shot and it was never going in. He was looking near post in the first half and it was just sky high. The only other moment I can recall him being kind of at the center of the match was when he got in Forrest Lasso's face, and Lasso was about a whole head taller than him. It was just a bad idea. So, tying it back to the whole referee thing, Sacramento was really not. They weren't really creating a ton. They didn't have a ton going for them in the second half either. Kind of like us, we didn't really have much going, but Sacramento didn't really do anything.
They did have more shots, I will say, but yeah.
Yeah, in terms of like dangerous opportunities, I didn't see anything that I felt like they deserved the win or we didn't deserve the win. I felt like a draw, given the circumstances, was appropriate. But the referee with the JJ Williams stuff and with Connor Hanley, like he was giving them a golden opportunity to quite literally steal 2 more points than they deserved. And I think we should give our squad a lot of credit for hanging in there like we did, going down a defender, having to reorient things on the fly with a pretty injured squad as is. Moving things around on the fly while the game's going on to hang in there and come away with at least the point against the best team in the league. It was impressive, and I think we it merits a shout out and a bit of emphasis on this episode, because again, that's a really tough thing to do. It's a tough thing to do when everything seems to not be going your way, when the ref seems to be playing against you. To come out with a point like that with 9 men for at least the last 5 minutes was really, really impressive. And congratulations to Neil Collins for that. I think that all comes back to his preparation and the leadership of him for the team and the veteran guys on the field like Lasso hanging in there. So given all of that, I think I'm pretty happy with the 1-1 draw, although it felt like we could have most definitely come away with all 3 points, James. It's one of those kind of bittersweet things in the moment, but looking back, kind of the more days I am separated from that game, the more I think I realized that 1 point is okay. Not only okay, but pretty good against Sacramento, against Oliva, the referee. I think I'm okay with that, especially again with how well we played. It's not like we just walked away, hung in there and got a draw. Like we played really well throughout the game, shut down their really good attack. Cicerone, the type of player he is and the type of season he's having, he's going to create something eventually, and eventually he did. But yeah, what else I have in my notes? Even when Sacramento had a ton of possession, even when they were up 2 guys, I was really, really proud of and happy and optimistic about the rest of the season because of how we hung in there and played really sound defense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I don't have any extra things at this point, Carlos, unless you do. I think our next step is the man of the match. I
think you are right. I'm looking back because I had a lot of notes for this game because it was just such a crazy one. My last thing I'll say was we absolutely, if there was one chance to look back on in the second half and say, oh my God, we had 3 points in the bag, it was in the 59th minute. Kleeman, do you remember that? The ball is just kind of bouncing around. All of a sudden, Kleeman has it in front of him, and he tries to backheel it into the goal. I
do remember.
There was a moment where he had the ball in front of him. I don't know. Again, he's a center back, so it's not really expected that his finishing abilities are all that fantastic. But man, he had it on a platter. That goal was lined up perfectly for him. And it was a miscue. He waited a little bit too long to, let that fly. And by the time he did, he tried to do it with the back of his foot, and it just kind of rolled wide very, very slowly. The whole thing played out in slow motion for me.
I think that was the chance in the 60th minute that I was referring to, that I was just like, oh, come on.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm sitting there behind the goal, right, in the standing section, and everybody's kind of watching this ball slowly roll outside. And you can see even in Kleeman's face, he knew he had it, and it's unfortunate. But again, there was a few of those chances and a few chances where I thought we could have gotten up and scored a few more goals, but whatever. Looking ahead, I guess I can say this for the preview. A little bit concerned about JJ Williams not being available for next game because he seems to be kind of in the center of all of our goals. So we'll see how that plays out. But if I understand it correctly, it's just one game, right? He'll be back for the following game.
I mean, depending on what was said, at this point, who's to say that that referee isn't going to be like he said the worst thing ever, and now I got to give him a longer suspension. But
I don't know.
as far as I know, Carlos, you're right, and I think that it would be pretty silly if any other kind of thing happened here. So
yeah. So whatever. That was the game, James. Let's move into our men of the match. I'm interested to see what you have to say. Who do you have for your man of the match?
yeah, my man of the match was not someone that was kind of going to stand out on the stat sheet necessarily in terms of his numbers. It wasn't necessarily someone who even got on the score sheet itself, but my man of the match was Lawrence Wyke. Lawrence Wyke, because he came back first game with the Rowdies in however many months it's been. He's here on loan, and it was like it was the exact same player as before. By that I mean like the same player that we had in his position last week. So Jan Ekra obviously started alongside Jordan Doherty in the midfield against Colorado Springs, and he did very well. Unfortunately, in his doing well, he also got injured. So we bring in Lawrence Wyke on loan, and you wouldn't have known that it was a different player other than the fact that they don't look alike. They did pretty well. And I think that's really good that you can have a player who's so intimate with the system that he can come back and just fill a spot like that.
Yeah. And
or at least maybe not the system because it is a little different, but
Yeah.
he's intimate with the instructions.
Yeah. And I think comparing him a bit differently to Ekra, I think he brings a bit more, or I guess if you look at this game, he brings a lot more offensively to the game than Ekra does, at least in, I think thinking about recent games. Again, the sample size is pretty small for Wyke. We just have this one game this season for him. But he was involved in a ton of offensive looks. And again, could have even ended up on the score sheet himself. So not totally characteristic for a defensive midfielder of his nature. But I love it, and I hope he can keep that up if he sticks around in the starting lineup for a bit. I love offensive production from defensive midfielders. I love him kind of streaking up the field and getting involved, and could have notched an assist or two as well. So, again, I think the bar for what we expected from him this game was a little lower, obviously, because he's been kind of away for a while. So I think he exceeded all of our expectations, certainly my expectations by a lot. So keep it up, Lawrence. We're rooting for you to keep that going, and I think we can see some big things from him next game as well. Cool. My man of the match is none other than Sebastian Dalgaard. I mentioned him more than enough throughout this episode already. He was just having a masterclass of a game. It's tough to slot in for somebody who picks up an injury.
It's kind of a similar situation.
Yeah, right. Very similar situation. Obviously Dayon Harris picked up some sort of injury, and Dalgaard came in to the starting 11. Hasn't really received too much starting time throughout this season, especially recently. Slotted in really, really well. Brings a slightly different game, slightly different dynamic to the starting 11 than Dayon Harris. Seems to not be afraid to rip a couple more shots than Dayon would. But in this game in particular, I was highly impressed, like I mentioned earlier, by Dalgaard's. Obviously, his first touch on that goal was so beautiful. And he had a couple of those moments throughout the game where he had a fantastic first touch to get by Sacramento's back line. He just had a fantastic game and kept them on their heels throughout his time on the field, which was relatively short. He came out around the 60th minute, if I remember right. But whenever he was on the ball, he was causing problems. Eventually got the assist. Could have had more. And I'm gonna, what moment was it? It was early on the second half, really early on. He had a really nice move in like the 48th, 49th minute, where he cut back in. He did a little, I'm forgetting the name of the move, whatever. He took on two Sacramento defenders by himself, almost got by a third, and would have created a nice look that could have ended up in a goal, but eventually got chopped down. He just had a ton of individual moments of brilliance, frankly. And I think if he keeps that up, kind of gets the chemistry going with his attacking midfielder and Charlie Dennis and whoever's playing striker, we could see a lot of good things from him as well. Who knows? maybe he sticks around in the starting 11, even if Dayon comes back. We'll see. I love Dayon. So I'm kind of conflicted in saying that, but it is what it is. Dalgaard had a fantastic game, and then hopefully he keeps that up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, we will move on. But before I do want to say that liking and subscribing to our podcast is free, and we of course appreciate when you do that. But if you think you might need some new threads coming up for the rest of this year and for the rest of this Rowdy season, you can head over to shop.rblrsports.com and check out all the designs that we've got going on over there. Not only can you find stuff for the Rowdies, but you can find stuff for the Bucks, the Rays, the Lightning. I'm sure in the future we will have stuff for the upcoming USL women's team too. So go check it out. And if you find something you like, which I'm sure you will, you can take 10% off by using the promo code COYR. That's COYR for Come On You Rowdies. So please do check that out. And you should be able to find it right there.
Nice.
Shop.rblrsports.com.
Quick anecdote. Every time I hear COYR, I'm thinking, I don't know why this popped in my head. My grandpa asked me like a couple months ago in Spanish. He goes, Carlitos, ¿qué es coyer? He goes, what's coyer? Why are you wearing a shirt? It's coyer. And it took me a while to explain. And eventually he got it. I was like, come on, you're out. He was like, yeah. That's fun. I love explaining that to the people who've never been around the world of soccer. Coyer, what the hell is coyer? Whatever. James, let's talk about something even more fun than coyer. New Mexico this weekend. What we got going on?
Yeah, so with New Mexico, we obviously have our new rival coming up here. This Saturday, the Rowdies are at home again at 7:30. We will be playing New Mexico United. I don't know what their team name is, like in terms of a nickname, because I know the Lobos are New Mexico University, so it's not that. But while the Rowdies are fourth in the East right now, it should be noted that NMU, not the university, is ninth out west. So there's a bit of a difference, obviously, and that is to our benefit. Let's hope it bodes well. Their last 5 games include 2 wins over Monterey Bay and Loudoun United, as well as an Open Cup loss. So, that doesn't count as much. I believe they got 1 round farther than we did in the Open Cup, but unfortunately, everybody loses, like most people lose to the MLS teams unless you're Birmingham and Pittsburgh this year. So going through, they seem to play a pretty rigid system. They play 4-4-2 to 4-1-4-1, but it's 4 at the back, 4 in the midfield, pretty much. That's how you're going to find it. This starts with Alexander Tambakis in net. He was a signing originally from Greece, but he's been around the USL and MLS reserve team kind of setup. So, he is their goalkeeper now. Harry Schwartz, Will Seymour, Kalen Ryden, and Austin Yearwood are the most likely starting defenders from right to left. I don't know if anyone listening will be too familiar with those names, but they have been, throughout the USL for a couple of years now. Again, mostly out west. Amando Moreno, Sergio Rivas, or Sam Hamilton. Justin Portillo and Santi Moar have been the recent starters across the 4 in the midfield. I would probably expect to see Sam Hamilton over Sergio Rivas because Sam Hamilton is the more defensive of the players, and I think that's just the way that they would prefer to line it up. Up top, they usually choose between or 2 of the 4 available options: 18-year-old Alex Wagner, Josh Dalling, Chris Weehan, or Greg Hurst. Greg Hurst being from Scotland. So they're making relatively good use of their academy with players like Alex Wagner and a couple of others. Unfortunately, Christian Nava is out for them. I believe he tore his ACL. It was something like that, but he's another 18-year-old that they have been using pretty frequently. So real bummer for him, but it's still good to see USL teams making use of their academies because I'm personally part of the player kids movement, and that is awesome. Sergio Rivas leads the team right now with 4 goals, while Moreno, Weehan, and Hurst each have 2. So those are kind of the danger men. Again, Rivas will probably be in the midfield. If he starts, then he will be in front of Justin Portillo and kind of taking up the more attacking of the midfield, of the central midfield roles. But if they have 2 strikers, then I think their most likely bet is to go with Sam Hamilton. So if they use 2 of Wagner, Dalling, Weehan, or Hurst, then I would expect to see Rivas on the bench. Otherwise, If they only use one of those, then obviously Rivas will probably find his way into the starting lineup. If we continue, then we'll talk about the assists. Josh Dalling leads with 3 assists so far, as well as 3 big chances created, according to our source FOTMob.
Big chances. I love
Yeah,
that
I would love to know exactly what that's defined by. It's probably some, stats model they have. But anyway, he is doing a lot of those. 5 others on this team each have 1 assist, but they're just not creating as many. Well, they're not scoring as many goals as we are. And that's, again, to our benefit. Tumbakis as well is not doing that well this year. It should be noted. He has gone 11 games without a clean sheet. That means we got to shoot. I don't know who's going to be starting out there. I do have a bet that it's probably going to be Cal Jennings because JJ Williams is out. I don't know who's going to be starting at right back because Connor Antley will be out, and that's going to hurt us. It might be Lawrence Wyke, depending on other players' availability. It might be Jordan Doherty, depending on other players' availability. I just don't know yet. But we need to create chances and we need to shoot. I mean, hell, if you have, if you open up space enough that you just have like a foot between yourself and the defender that's closing you down, take a shot, in my opinion. But I'm also not a coach, so none of the Rowdies players are likely to be listening to me here. I'm sure that Neil Collins will be giving them a lot more precise shooting technique and suggestions than that. So yeah, it doesn't appear as though we've ever played each other before. I didn't see that.
I think you're right.
In our records. So this will be kind of interesting just to play it, effectively for us, a new team. And for us, it also looks like a very good opportunity to get back to winning ways, because I think that we can win against this team. They don't seem to be doing particularly well. They especially don't seem to be doing particularly well defensively. Meanwhile, we do have a team that we can kind of, drag and drop players if somebody needs to be replaced because they're injured. So let's do that. Let's shoot. Let's go win this game.
Yeah. It's a team that, like you said, isn't really in fantastic form or anything, picking up wins against a couple mediocre teams at best. But also putting up good performances against really good teams. I mean, they gave San Antonio a pretty good game away. Barely lost to, who was it that they just lost to? Lost 1-0 to El Paso, who's a pretty solid team, who I believe we have coming up the week after that. So yeah, I mean, it's a team that, again, isn't doing too hot, but they, like you said, they have a pretty good roster, a couple individual talents that can make some trouble for you if you're not on your best. Hurst is a guy that we've seen around for a bit. And Santi Mawar, a couple ex-Phoenix Rising players that we would have seen in that 2020 championship final. So I think it'll be a good game. Like you said, it's a good chance for us to get back on track. I'm probably spoiling it by saying I think we can win as well. I'm spoiling our prediction a bit. But I'm curious, like you said, about who's going to start in that right back spot. Could we see a Tate Johnson starting?
That would be kind of interesting. It's certainly a possibility.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know. I'm sure, like you said, it all kind of depends on the availability of certain midfielders. Jake Arman is back. I don't really know if he's he's not really a right back kind of guy, but given the circumstances, I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of makes a weird appearance in a spot like that. I don't know. Maybe even start like the midfield, like central midfield, and Jordan Doherty drops. I don't know. Neil Collins is a guy that's not really afraid to try new things, and especially in these moments where we're kind of short on players. I wouldn't be surprised if we see something kind of wacky. But a Tate Johnson start would not be all that surprising either. He's a really good player, and I don't think we give him enough credit for that. But he can definitely hang around with the adults, so to speak. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him. And I think it'd be kind of fun to see him start on Saturday. But again, that's not to take New Mexico for granted or anything. It should be a pretty good game. It's a solid team, and I think we still need to be at our best to come out with the victory. That being said, James, should we jump into our predictions?
Let's do it. Tell me what you got.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 3-1 Rowdies win, is what I'll say. Yeah, they have some offensive firepower. Nothing particularly crazy, but we've seen a couple moments of sleepiness from our back line. in the past, and I wouldn't be surprised to see us let up a goal. That being said, I would love a shutout. I think the more surprising prediction would be my 3 goals for us. I think with JJ Williams out, it might be a little bit tougher to get some offensive production, or at least it would appear that way. But given New Mexico's kind of recent poor run of form, the guys on the bench, we have like 4 strikers on the bench, by the way. It's something that has kind of been a result of not having a lot of midfielders right now. Yeah, we have like 4 strikers on the bench, and they're all very much hungry to make a name for themselves and kind of get a spot in that starting 11. So whoever is starting, and again, I'm sure it will be Kyle Jennings, like you said, is going to go out and look to score a bunch of goals if they can, obviously. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some, a Kyle Jennings 2-goal performance and a goal from somewhere in the midfield. Charlie Dennis has been scoring a lot recently. Maybe he gets on the score sheet as well. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go 3-1. I'm sure we'll let up a goal at some point in there. And whoever plays striker, again, I'm sure is going to have a good performance. Because these guys have been hungry on the bench. So I'm sure they're going to come out with a chip on their shoulder.
I think you're right. I'm going to generally go along your lines, not quite the same. I'm going to say that we are going to win this game 4-1. 4-1. I am going to take a page out of the Mitch playbook, and I'm going to say 4-1. But I will leave the expletives to Mitch because we are on a podcast, and Eureka says that we have a quota, and we have already met it this year.
There you go.
So I'll leave it to Mitch, but 4-1 to the lads.
4-1. I'm very surprised by that, James. Again, you've been kind of like the guy that keeps us grounded in our predictions. 4-1 is interesting. What's your reasoning? You think we're gonna have a good offensive showing?
This is every week. I tell you, I go back and forth. This is one. My gut feeling, just straight up gut feeling.
Yeah. We've had games like that where we kind of randomly come out and win 5-0, right? There's been a few of those in the past few years. So I know maybe I'm going to change my prediction and say win 8-1. Why not? No, my real prediction is 3-1, but I like your look of 4-1. This is like a turning a new page with you. Like, you're always keeping us grounded. I love the optimistic James. This is fantastic. This is like,
we'll see if it pays off though. But I that's just a little gut feeling today. I'm gonna say that Mitch is right here. So producer Eureka that we just mentioned has also guessed a 3-1 scoreline for the Rowdies. He says that Carlos keeps taking his scores, but I guess you guys are gonna have the same prediction here.
I didn't even look at his prediction. That was purely me coming up with that 3-1 prediction. I didn't even see that until you mentioned that just now.
And our guest, Mike Maroney at mmaroney17 on Twitter, has put in another guess 1-0 to the Rowdies. So everybody's predicting wins. I am obviously hopeful that turns out the right way. And now, Carlos, we can move into our extra time. If you can take it from here, then I will finish out the last couple, and we'll go and we'll get everybody out of here.
Extra time. Woo-woo. Did we mention that Lawrence Wyke is back? Is it something we said? I feel like we should put this anyway. Lawrence Wyke is back on loan. We don't know for how long or what that really means. Is he here the whole season? Is he here for 15 days? Who knows? That's one of the things I hate about like contract announcements in the U.S. Everybody's especially discreet about what all the contracts are, and you never hear anything in the public or in the press releases. But Lawrence Wyke is back. That's good for now, especially because we are very short on midfielders, and especially on central midfielders. So welcome back, Lawrence. You were James's man of the match for a reason. So you put in a good shift, and hopefully you can keep that up going forward. In the wider world of soccer, what else is going on? Manchester City won the FA Cup. That's fun. Is there a big game going on this weekend for them by any chance, James?
I am not the biggest Manchester City fan in the world. I don't know if our former co-host Leo would try to take that mantle, but They do have a big game that might get some people excited. They are in the hunt for a treble this year because they've already won the league. They have now already won the FA Cup. And on Saturday, they play in the UEFA Champions League final against Internazionale Milano. And I got to say, Carlos, I'm pretty sure that they are the far and away favorites on this one. I think that Inter are looking at a miracle to try and get a trophy.
Yeah, it'd be fun to see an Inter Milan win, though. I think everybody's kind of rooting. I'm not saying everybody. I don't know. I'm always rooting for the underdog, but a good undercard game before the main event Saturday night, where your Tampa Bay Rowdies are playing none other than New Mexico United, who again I tried to find their nickname when you mentioned that, like what's their like motto. All I found was Somos Unidos, which is like I guess a little bit created because it's in Spanish, but it's just "We Are United,"
right?
Which is like every other team in the world. So, very uncreative, by the way. So my respect for New Mexico United dropped by a lot when I read that. But I guess it's a little bit different because it's in Spanish. I don't know. It's not really. That's fun. Yeah, Manchester City, Inter Milan, Saturday afternoon. The undercard for the main event, Rowdies, New Mexico United. What else is going on in the wide world of soccer, James?
Yeah, the last one I do have to say because we are giving out our congratulations to all of the league winners last week, including Tigres in Mexico, Manchester City that we just talked about, all the others. Unfortunately, the CONCACAF Champions League final has already happened, and I have to congratulate the team that won. It's a little annoying for me because I always try to support the American teams in this because it's kind of fun to get one over on your rival, and the American League rival in terms of soccer obviously is in Mexico. I think Mexico actually has the best league in the Americas, so you have to take that into consideration. But it was Club Leon who came out on top, and they beat LAFC. So there you go. They are the champions. Boo, but congratulations.
Whoa. Did you say Mexico is the best league in the Americas, like including South America?
I think so. I think it's even better than
goodness.
Brazil because of the money that they spend on it, which is just like crazy money. But the problem is, Carlos, we don't have Copa Libertadores with Mexican teams taking part anymore. So I can't even say that for sure.
That's true. That is true. They I will say my one thing that I always kind of hold over my friends who are more involved in Liga MX is while they were in the Copa Libertadores, they never won one. So I think that's
I think it's a little different now than it was back then, but you're right that you're right that obviously the record doesn't support them.
Yeah. Anyway, this is a tangential conversation, but something interesting. I love the Copa Libertadores. I think it's fun to have the Mexican teams in it. I always remember one of my earliest soccer memories. Sorry, now I'm just ranting. One of my earliest soccer memories was 2008 Liga Deportiva Universitaria de Quito from Ecuador. Was playing Club America from Mexico City in the semifinals of that tournament, on our way to winning the whole thing and becoming the first Ecuadorian team to win the Copa Libertadores. So I always have a special place in my heart for the Azteca, for being that stepping stone towards Ecuadorian soccer history.
Nice.
Anyway, that's a random tangential thing. But anyway, if anybody wants to talk about,
we got to do the English language South American soccer podcast at some point.
Yeah, right. I'm sure there's not a lot of people that do that. We can kind of find a niche market for that. The English speaking Copa Libertadores recaps and stuff.
I haven't found it, at least if it exists, but there you go. Yeah, maybe we could corner that one. But
there you go.
The other congratulations, and it's another bitter one that I have to send out. The under-20 women's CONCACAF championship also concluded this past weekend. And I was telling my wife about this beforehand. It turns out that I was wrong. The U.S., I said, was on, there are tiers where the U.S. and Canada are on the top tier. About 2 tiers down is Mexico. Another 2 tiers is like maybe Jamaica and someone else. And then everyone is like another 2 tiers behind that. Well, anyway, I'm going to have to eat my words because Mexico beat the U.S. in the final and won their second ever women's under-20 CONCACAF championship. So, the U.S. qualified for the under-20 World Cup. That should be coming up, I think, later this year, but Mexico won the whole thing. So another bitter congratulations go out to those ladies. good on you. But from me, you get a boo.
I love the U20 tournaments, James. There's a lot going on in that world. The U20 World Cup is still going on right now. If you're listening to this, be sure to tune in. Israel pulled off a really weird upset against Brazil recently.
How did they do that? I
was insane.
Was shocked.
Yeah, Ecuador bowed out a bit earlier than we had hoped. We lost to South Korea. Ecuador has so much.
We're
good
in
talent.
the semifinals.
Yeah, the quarterfinals. No, round of 16 was when we got knocked out this time around. Surprisingly, no Mexico in that U20 tournament. But on the topic of Mexico and the U20 Mexico women's team, thank you to the country of Mexico for this fantastic guacamole I'm eating right now, particularly the state of Yucatan. And that will be my last Mexico shout out of the evening, James.
All right, there we go. Well, I think that is all the shout outs, in fact, that we have this evening. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, but we will leave it there. Please, of course, follow RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at RBLR Sports. I am also on Twitter at RBLR James K. And yourself, Carlos?
At CarlosTBA10 on Twitter. Come find me tweeting about the entire world of Tampa Bay sports, particularly the Rays recently. I don't even really like baseball, but this Rays team has been a lot of fun to watch. And if you're looking for a time to get into baseball and you're a Tampa Bay fan, this is the time. It's a fun team. Sport's a bit slow if you're not really around baseball too much, but hey, give it a try and you might like it like me.
There you go. And you can also use the hashtag AskRBLR to get at us with any questions or concerns you have about the Rowdies. Like and subscribe to our podcast, and you can get the full experience on YouTube, as we've said. Please check it out there. Or if you just want the podcast itself, we are on Spotify, the iHeartRadio app. We are on Apple and Google Podcasts. We are everywhere that you want to listen to us. So for another week with, I would say, a good result and another result surely to come on you Rowdies.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.